Today, I am watching football and experiencing the matchday atmosphere at one of England's most historic football venues, Goodison Park. Last season, in May of 2025, Everton said farewell to the Old Lady for one final time. A 2-0 win over an already relegated Southampton thanks to an Iliman and Jai brace saw the doors of Goodison Park close for one more time, at least for a men's senior game anyway. After 9 league titles and 5 FA Cups for the Toffees while being here at Goodison, at the start of this season it moved to the Bramley Moor Dock, also known as the Hill Dickinson Stadium. However, despite this, that didn't mean it was the end for Goodison Park, as at the start of this season, the 25-26 season, Goodison Park became the home of Everton women, something that I find very interesting, because last season Everton women played their home games here at Hill Park, with their highest attendance last season being 2,109 against Chelsea, dropping as low as 607 against Tottenham Hotspur. Now this here is the ground. That right there is the main stand. This is where Everton women were playing league games last season, which when you compare this to what was last season, a 40,000 capacity Goodison Park, it is absolutely night and day. Don't get me wrong, it is probably a good facility, but it's just a gym and a football pitch by the looks of it. But all things considered, a lot has still changed since the departure of the Everton men's team. My only visit here was an FA Cup game against Crystal Palace a couple of seasons ago. A 1-0 win for the Toffees. I sat right at the back of the Bullens. It was the only ticket I could get. And this was back in the days of FA Cup replays. Who remembers them as well? So it was a night game. And I vividly remember standing right here outside the Winslow Hotel. It was absolutely packed, full of Evertonians. And now, just a couple of years later, so much has changed. This place behind me, the Winslow Hotel, a pub older than the club itself. Unfortunately, in January of 2026, this place shut its doors for one final time. And look, that is Hill Park, where I literally just was. Compare that to the stands in Goodison. Now, without the footfall that pub obviously would have got on a Premier League match day, comparing that to what they get WSL match days now, it's incomparable. And with a lot of the footfall now heading towards the new Hill Dickinson Stadium, quite far away from here, on the docks of the River Mersey, it's no surprise that the pub would close. I'm just really surprised that it's closed so soon, which, believe it or not, has actually thrown a massive spanner in the works, because back in August when I went to the Hill Dickinson, in the back of my mind I knew I was going to come and make this video eventually. I wanted to come back to Goodison Park and experience it today. One thing I never got to do that night, because I'd have probably been queuing for a while for a pint, was have a pint in here. I just wanted to have a pint in there. Now, as Everton Football Club entered a new era at the start of this season for not just the men but the women's team, there's one big question that has lied around Goodison Park for me, and that is, why are Everton women really here then? Because as I've said, their attendances weren't great at Hill Park. This historic venue behind me, Goodison, if I had my way, would never have gone. I love the old school grounds, but Everton had to move on to a modern stadium, and even though fans at the moment don't feel as connected to the stadium as they do at Goodison Park, they're doing well this season and look like they could potentially push for Europe. So in a few years' time, if Everton continue to progress, make some memories at the Hill Dickinson Stadium, then it will start to feel like home. But there's one thing for me that I pointed out last time I was here: nothing will beat the blue brick old stadiums, the turnstiles that you've got to squeeze to get through, in the centre of a residential area, which is what I think is the biggest issue here for Everton. I think it all stems from when the club was formed in 1878. Everton were formed as St Domingo's FC by a local parish church, and at the time they played games here at Stanley Park, one of the most interesting parks in the world, by the way. This is the park that divides Anfield and Goodison Park. So from where I'm stood, you can see both Anfield and over there, Goodison. As you can imagine, there really wasn't much to do in 1878. So St Domingo's FC actually grew quite a big fan base really quick while playing here at Stanley Park. And this led to quite big crowds encroaching onto the pitch. Eventually, they had to move away from here to an actual sort of football facility. And by 1884, Everton would arrive here just south of the Stanley Park to Anfield. They'd later become founders of the Football League, and the first ever Football League title to be brought back here to Anfield was actually Everton's in 1891. Yes, this iconic home of Liverpool was once home to Everton. The players would get changed in the pub on the corner. However, it wouldn't be long before the Everton committee would become unhappy with the Everton president, who was also happened to be the owner of Anfield. Rising rent costs plus just an overall poor relationship saw Everton move away from Anfield. This meant that owner of Anfield at the time had a football stadium, a 20,000 capacity football stadium with no football team playing there. You see, he had had ambitions at the time to play football in the winter, build an athletics track around the pitch at Anfield and have athletics there in the summer. Luckily, that never happened. This would later see the formation of Liverpool Football Club, and well, the rest is history, let's just say. And despite this being home of Liverpool since 1892, a fact that all Everton fans must absolutely love is the fact that there are 3 professional football stadiums in this city, and all 3 of them were actually built for Everton. Why is this all relevant to Everton women in 2025, Goodison Park and the Hill Dickinson Stadium? Well, just look around you. This is Goodison Park. We're on the Gladys Street at the moment, and I think one of the biggest disadvantages this stadium has is the fact that it would really struggle to expand. You see, Liverpool have really taken advantage on the space around their stadium and been able to expand Anfield a lot, especially over the past 10-15 years. They've taken advantage of something that Everton have never really had at Goodison Park, and their only real option to play in a bigger stadium was to move away. Of course, moving to a bigger, more modern facility is better financially for revenue and the clubs wanting to push on. I'm sure they'll be seeing a lot more concerts at the Hill Dickinson Stadium than they ever did here at Goodison. But the whole concept of bringing more revenue to the club, despite being in the big days of the TV deals in the Premier League, is definitely Everton's biggest asset here. Yes, that all sounds great and all, but what does that have to do with this place, Goodison Park? See, I think when Everton had the plans for Bramley Moore Dock, the Hill Dickinson Stadium, they thought an investor would take this off their hands, knock it down, turn it into whatever they could, whether that be housing, flats, a big Tesco, whatever else they turn old football grounds into. But instead, that hasn't happened. And many of them stadiums that have been knocked down and turned into houses and flats have been crying out for housing. Simply redevelopment in them areas have been needed, and especially in London as well, where housing prices have absolutely skyrocketed in recent years. However, behind me, I am literally right next to Anfield, and as you can see, there are a whole row of houses here that are just unoccupied. A lot of these houses around me, surrounding these grounds, have been here pre-World War I and probably been here as long as Anfield itself. And well, would a housing developer really make much money off a new housing development on the site of Goodison Park? Housing development that would probably lead to being social housing? Probably not, to be honest. So for now, Goodison Park is still home to an Everton side, like it has been for over 130 years. Today, I'm off to watch Everton women take on West Ham United in the Women's Super League. To be honest, footballing wise, I'm not expecting a lot, but I want to see what Goodison Park is really like inside in 2026, what the atmosphere is like, what the stadium's looking like. But first, I want to see if I can get an actual paper ticket, because I'm starting to get a bit annoyed. A little bit of a rant here. I'm sure that 99.999% of you are going to agree. What is going on with all these e-tickets for away games? Game's gone. Any spares, any spares. Good lad down without, any spares. Well, we're now inside of Goodison on the concourse. There's some live music going on. Looks like there's no cold pies, but they do have warm ale, which is good. Anyway, let's have a look up here and see the current state of Goodison Park. And here we are then, Goodison Park in 2026. Quite different from the last time I was here, I'll tell you that. They really must have sent off everyone's seats and just filled up what they've got here, because these numbers, some of them, 13, 44, 17, 18, 15, 40. But most of the Bullens is absolutely ripped out. If you remember, when I came to Goodison, I was all the way at the back. I couldn't see anything. And well, the main stand isn't looking great either, to be fair. Look at that, all the seats are ripped out of there. And then there's the park end over there, where just like half the seats are ripped out. Yeah. I love, however, that they've still kept intact all these seats from what was known as one of the worst away ends in English football. And well, as you can see, the top of the Gladys Street has also been covered by all that tarpaulin. However, look how close I am to the pitch here in the main stand. You know, that's something you're not getting at the Hill Dickinson Stadium, literally being, what, a metre, 2 metres away from the pitch. Now, how do I feel about Goodison Park today? I mean, stood here, I do feel a little bit sad, and it does feel a bit weird thinking that Everton's men's team will never ever play another game here in Goodison Park. But I think there's a lot of positives actually being here at Goodison. It's a good opportunity for young people who never got to experience Everton here to come and visit Everton's original home. Yes, they played at Anfield and Stanley Park for a few years, but Goodison Park is the true home of Everton. Of course, this is so different to what it looked like less than a year ago. But these grounds are getting fewer and fewer. The ones with the steep stands, just like the main stand, we're posting the way, having to look around the pole to see the goal, being a metre or two away from the pitch. They're just getting fewer and fewer, and it is a real shame. Well then, Everton at Goodison Park in 2026, and Yeah, this is what we're having to put up with. Kick off here at Goodison. Oh, chance for Everton. Well, an early goal. Well, 35 minutes into this game, I've just been made aware of a fact. These blue blocks on these corners, I'd never really even noticed them, to be honest. They're there for one reason, and that is because some Everton fans were complaining they could see Anfield from their season ticket seat, so I guess they couldn't. Well, 1-0 here to Everton at half-time. It's not been a bad game, to be fair. Everton have been the better side, in my opinion. Got a half-time snack in a toffee donut, £2.50. This was the last one, by the way. £6.50 these are at the Hill Dickinson Stadium. I can see why fans are a bit disillusioned at the moment. The second half started, and they're doing the old. The referees come to check it. Come on. Yep. Well, we're into the 89th minute here at Goodison. Entertainment-wise, hasn't been brilliant, to be honest. Second half's been quite flat. Everton have been the better team, in my opinion, although West Ham are about to score. Punched away by the keeper. Every time I record something, by the way, like record myself, something happens on the pitch all the time. As for like Goodison itself, I don't think they need 3 stands open if they're going to want to let the women play here. I'm not against the women playing here. There's, a couple of thousand people here, I'd imagine. They're all here enjoying football, and that's what truly matters. It's just, look, I know half the ground is closed off and covered in big tarpaulin, but you've got about a couple hundred people over there, a few more hundred in the main stand. The atmosphere has come from the Garter Street. It's actually been a little bit better than that men's game I went to. I'm not even joking. The only Everton thing that is lacked today is people moaning and complaining and booing the team. I haven't had enough of that, which is a little bit of a shame. Either way, I mean, I don't like every single team singing this song. But we're seconds away from full time here. It hasn't been the most thrilling game, but it has been great to watch a game at Goodison Park one final time. And there is the full time whistle.